My name is Lisa Garcia, Director of Educational Services at MindPlay. Thank you for joining me as I take you through MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach. MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach is a technology-based reading intervention for any student K through 12, as well as any adult who may struggle with reading. It is an automated, adaptive system that creates a unique, individualized lesson plan for every single student. The way it does it is by using this three-tiered approach. It begins with an assessment that creates an assignment based on that assessment, and then as the student works through their lesson, it automatically monitors and adjusts the instructional assignment for that student. So it truly is differentiated for every single student. No two students will go through the program in exactly the same way. It begins with a great reading curriculum. As the research supports, a reading program should contain these components: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. But MindPlay includes an additional component called grammar for meaning. Not only do we provide the curriculum, but we also provide the instructors that deliver that curriculum. These instructors use what we call research best practices for delivering reading instruction. All of our coaches were trained by experts in the field of reading, and these three ladies at the top are certified speech pathologists. All of our coaches deliver instruction using those multiple modalities of instruction, meaning if a student needs to be retaught a lesson, it's not just repeated, it is delivered in a different instructional presentation. One focus area may be on a visual representation, the next one may be auditory, or a combination of those. So a student is going to be retaught a lesson as needed, but not just repeated the same thing over and over. All of our coaches use what we call specific and timely targeted feedback. Any interaction the student has with the program is either a positive reinforcement or corrective feedback that is specific to the student's errors. And of course, because we control the way the program is delivered, all of the lessons are direct, explicit, and systematic in their presentation. And of course, we're monitoring the errors a student makes, so we ensure that all lessons are taught to mastery. There's a planned connection within the components. What a student learns in phonics is applied in grammar. What's learned in grammar for meaning is applied in fluency. What's learned in fluency is applied in comprehension. And vocabulary, assessment, everything is a planned connection within each of these components. And it all begins with the universal screener. It is an embedded assessment that really is a standalone assessment that provides your baseline data information for your students' strengths and deficits. All of these areas are screened within that universal screener. Within the components are your mastery instruction, which are your foundation skills of phonemic awareness, phonics, and grammar for meaning. And the goal is for students to move to the proficiency levels, which is grade level vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. And the way we do that is by asking schools and students to follow this fidelity of implementation. If they use the program for 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week minimum, we will move students to their grade level goal. Now, this expectation varies based on the student. If you have a student who is Tier 1, who does not have any specific deficits, they certainly can use our program because our program is K-12, but they will move above grade level sooner than other students would, and they may finish the program in 10 to 12 hours. A Tier 2 student who has some reading deficits may finish the program in anywhere from 20 to 40 hours. But it is your Tier 3 students, students with dyslexia, learning disabilities, or second language acquisition issues, who can complete the program and get to grade level, but it may take anywhere from 60 to 80 hours to complete the program. But certainly all students' goal is to get to grade level. It is the innovative method of instruction that delivers not only the core reading components, but provides the instructors for the program that allows the student to be successful in MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach. Students will get phonics and grammar and vocabulary and phonemic awareness and comprehension and fluency when they need it at a level that's appropriate for them. Let's look at the individual components. Let's look at the universal screener first. This is also called RAPS 360. It provides benchmark and progress monitoring data to the students as they move through the program. Baseline provides baseline information on each of these core skills, And then the students, teachers can monitor the effectiveness of the assigned intervention by watching how the students progress on the benchmark and progress monitoring. All of the testing is delivered automatically based on benchmarks throughout the school year and a preset progress monitoring date. The Universal Screener consists of up to 8 assessments that a student may take. They begin with the Comprehension Screener, which is a close assessment that will determine the level of fluency that a student will get. Let's begin with a look at the Universal Screener, which is the first assessment a student will take when they log into MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach.
Comprehension. You will see a passage with a missing word. Click on the word that best completes the sentence. If you change your mind, click on a different word. Click on the Next button to begin.
The first assessment the students will see is what we call the close assessment. The close assessment is a typical fill-in-the-blank assessment that students will see and determine their independent reading level. This assessment will be used to place students into the fluency component. And let's look at the fluency component because this is very unique to MindPlay.
Expected fluency. You will see a passage. As you read, the words will begin to disappear. Keep reading until the passage ends. Then answer the questions. Click on the Next button to begin.
You will notice that the text is fading away on the screen. Now remember that expected fluency is based on the student's independent reading level. So what you're seeing on the screen is actually quite fast. It may not be that fast for all students. There are additional fluency assessments built into the program, whether the student passes the initial one or if they don't pass the initial one, just to provide additional information for the teacher. The phonics assessment is also adaptive. There are 10 levels in phonics. Level 1 is letter-sound correspondence. Level 10 is 3-syllable words with Greek and Latin roots. All of the words are nonsense words, so it truly is assessing a student's ability to recognize English spelling and the rules associated with reading words in English.
Phonics. You will spell the sound or nonsense word that I say. Use English spelling rules to fill in the missing letter or letters. To hear the sound or the word again, click on the Voice button. Click on the Next button to begin.
Hash, chab, chab, hoth, hoth.
The phonemic awareness assessment is only given to students in kinder and first grade. The purpose of the phonemic segmentation assessment is to identify how many sounds a student is able to hear within a word. So the coach is going to say, count the sounds in man, and the student will push up these tokens sound by sound. Let's look at that.
Phonemic awareness. Listen carefully to the word I say. Count the sounds in that word. Click and slide up one circle for each sound you hear. Listen, the word bike has 3 sounds. B-I-K. Bike. Click on the Next button to begin.
Stomp, stomp, spree,
The listening vocabulary assessment is very unique in MindPlay. It is not based on a student's ability to decode, but the student's ability to recognize words from an auditory prompt. The coach is going to read the entire question as well as the options available to the student. If the student is able to recognize the word from an auditory prompt, then the student is given credit for that. This is also an adaptive assessment. It will go down from kindergarten level all the way up to 12th grade, based on how the student does. If a student gets an answer correct, the next item will be 1 grade level higher. If the student gets the answer incorrect, it will go 1 grade level lower, and the program will adapt up and down until it determines the student's level of independent performance. Let me show you how that looks.
Listening vocabulary. Click on the word that means the same as the word you hear. To repeat a word, click on the Voice button. Click on the Next button to begin.
Which of these means the greatest possible amount?
Precipice, maximum, ordeal, maximum.
Which word means about the same as outside?
External, haughty, meager, haughty.
The final assessment is called the visual scanning, and this is only given to students that do not pass the initial screener at grade level. The purpose of the visual scanning assessment is to simply see, are students able to track a shape across the screen efficiently, and are they really ready to focus and pay attention to the program as the students move through it. Let me show you how that looks.
Visual scanning. You will see different shapes move across the screen. Look at the shape below. Count the number of times you see this shape. You need to remember how many times you see it. Click on the next button to begin.
How many times did you see this shape?
Let's now look at the individual components of the virtual reading coach. Students will get assigned lessons based on how they do. The first component is phonemic awareness for students in kindergarten and first grade. However, students in second grade on up will get phonemic awareness assigned only as a remediation based on their performance in phonics. And that's because the phonemic awareness component is strictly sound-based. There are 44 sound-based lessons. So for students in second grade on up, they will begin with a lesson in phonics. If a student struggles in a phonics lesson and their student is in second grade or higher, they will be remediated to a phonemic awareness lesson tied to that lesson. If a student is in kinder or first grade, they will start in the phonemic awareness instruction and move to a phonics lesson following it. Phonemic awareness lessons are all sound-based lessons. There are no letters or words to read on the screen. The whole focus of the phonemic awareness instruction is to help students identify and recognize those sounds, those phonemes within English words. The coach is going to teach a lesson, whether it's a sound production or a visual prompt or sound identification, and then the student will practice that particular skill in 4 different ways. There are 8 different activities, but a student will get 4 specific activities to reinforce whatever the particular objective taught. These coaches are going to move through the activity asking kids to recognize a sound. Click on the picture that begins with. Click on the picture that ends with. Find the picture that rhymes with. All those typical phonemic awareness activities that help students recognize and hone their identification of sounds before they connect the sound to a letter. Phonics is a component that is given to all students in the program. There are 96 objectives within the phonics component, but all students will not get all 96 objectives. And the way we identify which objectives a student needs is by providing an additional layer of screening. So students will go from the universal screener to the phonics component and get a secondary screener. But it's a quick, short assessment broken up into 5 different sub-objectives from that 96. Students will only get assigned the lessons they need. If they know their consonants and short vowels, then they won't get those assignments. If they're ready for Greek and Latin roots or 3-syllable words, then that's where they can start. But a student must prove mastery of all subcomponents before they move on to the more difficult phonics lessons. This is an example up here of the Greek instruction. It's a more advanced lesson, but you can see how we talk about when we talk about reteaching. This coach can reteach Greek roots in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways. So if a student needs to be retaught this lesson, they're not going to just repeat the same thing over and over. We will come back to a different instructional presentation. Let's begin by looking at the first phonics lesson, just as an example of what the phonics program looks like. The first thing you're going to see is the Greek lesson. It's a more advanced lesson, but it gives you a good idea of the scope of the program.
I often use Greek words in science, medicine, drama, technology, and mathematics.
I'm going to stop her for a
English
little
words
bit
that come
because
from
what
the
you can
Greek
see with the
language.
virtual reading coach system is the students have access to these trophies at the top of the screen. By accessing at this trophy at the top of the screen, the student will have access to their own reports and their own progress as they go through the program.
English words that come from the Greek language have unique spelling patterns. In Greek words, I spell the k sound ch. Chemistry. I spell the f sound ph. Phone. I spell short and long I sounds with the letter Y. System. Hydrogen.
Immediately following instruction is practice. There are 4 practice activities embedded within the program, 4 practice activities that reinforce that objective explicitly. However, there are 12 different activities available to the student, so they're not going to just get the same 4 activities over and over again. They will get launched any of these, a combination of these 12 activities, so that the student gets to practice a different modality to help reinforce that information to their long-term memory. They will read, write, listen, sort, match, edit, segment, blend. Once the student leaves instruction, they will go to the practice activities. In this particular case, with the Greek objective, the students are going to spell words with Greek roots, match words with Greek roots, edit words with Greek roots, break Greek words into syllables based on that syllabication. Those skills will explicitly reinforce what was taught in the lesson. Once the student is in these practice activities, they cannot click their way through the program. Every interaction triggers positive reinforcement or corrective feedback. Let's look at one of the practice activities for the Greek lesson. This activity is called the spell activity. Now, it's not the most exciting activity, but it's a good way to show you how the student gets feedback while working in the program.
Spell the word or word part that I say. Click on me to check your work. If you make a mistake, click on the question mark for a clue. Then, try again. Spell photo. Photo. English words that come from the Greek language have unique spelling patterns. Photo. Photo. English words that come from the Greek language have unique spelling patterns. Photo. Photo. In words from Greek, spell the f sound ph. Photo. Photo. Terrific!
Reteaching is available in phonics, phonemic awareness, and the grammar components. And as I mentioned before, they're not going to just repeat the lesson over and over again. They will get a different instructional presentation. For example, here are 4 of our ways of 10 to teach the short E. Here are 4 of the ways out of 7 to teach TION, the shun lesson. Lots of reteaching built into the program, but a student will only get it if they need it. The next component is the Grammar for Meaning component. This is a very unique component for MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach. The Grammar for Meaning component bridges reading with writing, and for us it really breaks the habit of decoding and making it connect to text for comprehension. So the grammar is, the students will learn grammar. However, it is helping kids comprehend text, looking at sentence structure and paragraph construction. There are 59 objectives in the grammar component, so the students will learn those parts of speech, the nouns, the verbs, but they will also move into more advanced lessons dealing with persuasive text and compare and contrast text and business letters and friendly letters. The instruction in this grammar component is also explicit and systematic, looking for that mastery of the objective. But as the students move through this, they're looking at connected text. They're looking at one word moving to 2 words, moving to sentences, phrases, and paragraphs to help construct meaning from text. So the grammar component is really looking at those patterns of the English language, looking at syntax and usage, and helping kids to break the habit of just sounding out words to getting meaning from the word because it's connected to the words around it. This component also follows instruction followed by practice activities. The coach is going to teach a lesson. There are up to 7 different activities a student can get, but they only get 3 at a time. And each of these activities will reinforce the particular objective.
A preposition is a part of speech. A prepositional phrase is a small group of words that begins with a preposition and ends with a noun or pronoun. The puppy is in the dish. The apple is beside the dish. The phrases in the dish and beside the dish show the location of the puppy and the apple. A reader can picture where they are.
The grammar component, remember, is very unique to MindPlay. You'll notice the lessons are focusing on getting meaning from text.
Click on the sentence that matches the picture.
The activities that the student go to when they're in grammar also relate to that specific objective. There are 7 different activities where they really are focusing on understanding text, not so much as memorizing the parts of speech, but how you get meaning when that word is embedded in a sentence, phrase, or paragraph.
That's right. Click on the sentence that matches the picture. Choose the word that positions someone in space. Excellent.
Lots of differentiated instruction built into the grammar component as well, meaning we will re-teach a lesson if needed. Now, if a student masters this lesson on their first try, then they will never see these other teaching instructional components. However, if they need to be retaught the lesson again, they will get it retaught in a different way. We have up to 10 different ways for each of those 59 grammar lessons that the coaches are able to deploy if a student needs it. The next component is MindPlay Vocabulary. The focus is on the most common and useful English words. The vocabulary module teaches the most common and useful English words, which account for 80% of words in a typical text. The module will provide a baseline pre-test to identify the level that the student will go into, and then the students will practice those words using shared reading practice activities. Pre-test and post-test ensure mastery of the instruction. The vocabulary is taught using picture clues, student-friendly vocabulary definitions, as well as embedded context to practice and reinforce that vocabulary. This component has a few built-in practice games. This is our only component that has those games embedded within it. So students will practice those skills with this submarine or balloon game, a puzzle game, and some of these mountain climbing games. The next component, and one of the most unique components for any reading program, is MindPlay Fluency. The fluency component addresses a student's ability to not only read silently, but to read fluently. MindPlay Fluency begins training using shapes. And let me show you what I mean by that.
Count the number of times you see the shape below. At the end, you will be asked how many times you saw this shape.
The student will build proficiency of tracking a shape across the screen before they even attempt to look at text. The visual scanning activity is alternated with a high-frequency word practice. So students will get 3 tracking practices followed by high-frequency word practice. We want to make sure that all those high-frequency words are at that automatic level for the student before we go working on connected text. Once students are ready to move to connected text, we begin with what we call a single line activity. And let me show you what that looks like. The single line activity is helping students track left to right, right back to left, and really building up that automaticity of decoding and working with those high frequency words before they move on to connected text.
After reading a story, you will be asked questions. Use the scroll bar to preview them, and then click the Next button. Read the story text as it appears, then answer the questions.
Now, in these practice activities, students will begin well below their independent reading level from that initial assessment that students took. So a student will never just start looking at text that's moving away quickly on the screen. We will begin well below their independent reading level. So it's a nice gradual training practice activity to help students build up their ability to read connected text fluently. Of course, the most important thing is to comprehend what the student is reading. The way we do that is by asking students to answer questions about the text they have read. If a student cannot answer those comprehension questions, the words per minute will not increase. And let me show you what I mean by looking at connected text and answering questions.
After reading a story, you will be asked questions. Use the scroll bar to preview them, and then click the Next button. You will see a page of text. Read the passage before the words disappear, then answer the questions.
The way the program monitors how the student is doing on the program is looking at the percentage correct on those questions. We are tracking 20 different specific category types that the student has potentially being asked for each of those stories. Once the trigger is met that a student is identified as having difficulty with a particular question stem type, that's what triggers comprehension instruction. There are 39 instructional lessons assigned, but they're only assigned as needed, based on how the student was doing in the fluency component. So if a student was having trouble with character questions or main idea questions or cause and effect questions, the program is tabulating those errors and it'll trigger comprehension instruction. This is our comprehension coach. The student will be pulled out of the fluency component, put into the comprehension instruction, and the coach will teach the student about the particular comprehension skill strategy that they may be having difficulty with. The coach is going to say, this is a simile, this is a metaphor, this is how you will identify them when you're reading text. Once the student moves through this guided practice and practical application activity, they will go back into the fluency to practice that skill. Let me show you what this lesson looks like.
Realistic fiction and fantasy are two kinds of fictional writing. In realistic fiction, the characters and events were imagined by an author, but they could be real. In fantasy, the characters and events are make-believe. They could not really happen. Read this story.
Click on the Next button to continue.
What kind of fiction is this?
All data available from the student's performance in the program is available in real time. A student may even click on their trophy that appears at the top of their login screen to get access to their own reporting. Of course, it's available at the district, school, and class level through the manager system. This report shows the student's progress on the universal screener. It will track progress through benchmark assessment as well as progress monitoring assessments over time, their independent reading level over time, their fluency over time, their vocabulary, phonics, phonemic awareness. All those skills are tracked over time. The achievement report will allow the school or the district to identify how far the students are through the curriculum. 100% is the goal, but your students will be reading at 80 and 90% of completion because the last component is typically working on improving their fluency words per minute rate. The student progress report is my personal favorite report because you can always see what a student is doing in the program. A teacher or a parent never needs to worry, what did Johnny do yesterday? Because this report will provide you meaningful information on a day-to-day basis of what the student did. It shows the day they used it, how long they took it, their pre-test score, and how many levels of instruction they had to see. These are not just repeated instruction, they are reteaching of the same objective in a different way. So this report has a lot of information to let you know what lessons the student has worked on and how they're currently doing. This student in Phonics Level 1, which is your consonants and short vowels, only got assigned these 4 lessons. Another student are going to have all 21 lessons. Another student may have 10 lessons. This is how you will see the students' individual lessons that are assigned to them based on their own unique performance. At the bottom of this report are the stories the student has read as well as the vocabulary that they've earned while they've worked throughout the program. There's an error report that's available at the teacher level where you can actually pull the report that shows every error a student has made in the program. So the teacher never has to worry, what was Johnny doing yesterday? You can actually see the work that the student is doing. And if needed, you may provide supplemental support, but keep in mind that supplemental support is not required because the program is monitoring the students' errors as they work through the program. Based on those errors is how the program is algorithmically assigning the next best lesson for the student. There are some supplemental materials available if needed, but these really are meant to help the teacher understand how the program is teaching a particular lesson. Remember, the program will provide the remediation because we are tabulating those errors for the student and algorithmically assigning the next lesson for the student. Thank you for joining me for this tour of MindPlay Virtual Reading Coach. If you have additional questions, please contact us at mindplay.com. Thank you.